You'd think after 9 years they'd at least show you a little respect. Instead, they handed me a piece of paper that said, "Your new salary, $52,000, effective immediately." 60% cut. No warning, no explanation, just a fake smile from Karen in HR and a silent nod from Eric, the man I used to train. They said it was realignment with market standards. I said, "I'll need 24 hours to consider." Then I walked out, sat in my car, and fell apart. Not because I couldn't survive, but because I gave them everything. Nights, weekends, my health, my son's childhood. But here's what they didn't know. In my pocket was 9 years of trust. Names, contracts, quiet loyalty from clients they never bothered to understand. So I made one call, not to a lawyer, not to HR, to the one man who had been waiting for this moment for 2 years, Stephen Holloway, CEO of Nexus. And when I said, "I'm ready to talk," he said, "We've been waiting for you." You ever see your own value slashed in ink? That's what it felt like. I sat there in that beige conference room, across from Karen from HR and Eric, the guy I once mentored, watching her slide that paper across the table like it was nothing. New salary, $52,000, it read, effective immediately. No discussion, no context, just a polite little phrase printed at the top. Realignment with market standards. 9 years, hundreds of late nights, dozens of client rescues, the time I missed Noah's first football game because a contract was falling apart at 7:00 p.m. on a Friday. The panic attacks in the break room. The weekends I spent troubleshooting vendor errors while my son sat alone with cold pancakes. And they thought I'd just say thank you. Eric didn't even meet my eyes. He sat there flipping a pen between his fingers like it was a routine audit, not an execution. "I'll need 24 hours, I said. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam my fist on the table, I just smiled, like a man holding in a scream so tight his jaw could crack. They looked relieved, as if I'd swallowed the poison willingly, but I wasn't agreeing. I was calculating, and as I walked out of that room, gripping that paper in my hand, like it might burn a hole through my skin, one thought kept echoing in my head. They really think I'm going to stay. Have you ever been reduced to a number by people who once praised you like family? If you're nodding, I hope you stay with me, because this story doesn't end with a resignation. It starts there. Let me take you to the next part, the part where everything begins to shift. I didn't break in that meeting. I broke in the parking garage, engine off, hands gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing holding me together. The silence was loud, just my own breath and the distant echo of someone else's life moving on upstairs. That's when the shaking started, not the kind you can hide, the full body kind, like grief had finally found a crack in the armor and poured in all at once. 9 years. Erased with one document. I don't remember how long I sat there. Maybe 20 minutes, maybe 45. The windows fogged from my breathing. My coffee went cold in the cup holder. My mind kept circling the same question. How am I going to tell Noah? He's 15, smart, observant. He knows when I'm off, even when I try to hide it. And I've spent years hiding it. The financial tightropes, the skipped vacations, the nights I cried quietly in the shower. And now this? I wiped my face and opened my phone, not knowing what I was looking for. Maybe some job posting, maybe just something that wasn't my own reflection. That's when it buzzed. Linda Barrett, former colleague. Text message, "Hey, call me ASAP, been trying to reach you." I almost ignored it. What could she possibly say that would make anything better? But then again, what did I have to lose? I tapped call. She picked up on the first ring. "Grant," she said, "you haven't checked your LinkedIn, have you?" "No," I muttered. "Not in a while." "You should. My boss has been asking about you. We need someone like you at Nexus." That's when the fog started to lift. Not hope, not yet, but motion, direction. You ever get a message like that, just when you needed it most? If so, sometimes it's not strength that saves you, it's timing. And this call was the first crack of light. Let me show you where it led. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, Noah's inhaler on the nightstand, that damn letter still folded in my jacket pocket, 60%. They wanted me to train my replacement for a job that wouldn't exist in 8 months and smile while doing it. But I wasn't empty-handed. 9 years in client relationships leaves a trail, one deeper than spreadsheets and dashboards. I wasn't dumb enough to take company data. That wasn't mine. But the notebook on my shelf? That was personal. Mine since day one. I opened it slowly like it might fall apart. Inside, birthdays of CTOs, notes about their kids' graduations, who preferred email over calls, who hated last-minute rollouts, who trusted me enough to text after hours when their systems were failing. These weren't just accounts. They were people, and I knew things about them that no CRM could hold. Which companies were about to scale, which ones were shopping for new vendors, who had been quietly complaining about service since the acquisition. I'd built that trust with late nights, quick responses, and a voice they could count on when everything else was breaking. That was my leverage. Not blackmail, not secrets, just history, earned the hard way. I shut the notebook and looked at the clock. 3:47 a.m. There was no non-compete, no clause, no reason I couldn't take what I knew, what I'd earned, and see what it was worth. And suddenly I wasn't the man who'd been gutted at a conference room table. I was the man holding a key. You ever feel that shift? When grief turns into fuel? That was me. By sunrise, I had already chosen my tie, reviewed my contract, and typed up 3 questions for Nexus. Not because I was desperate, but because I was done being underestimated. Let's talk about what came next. The meeting that changed everything. The cafe was nearly empty when I walked in. Just a few early risers hunched over laptops and paper mugs. It was 7:28 a.m. Cold wind in my coat sleeves, nerves in my chest. Stephen Holloway stood when he saw me. Gray at the temples, calm face, no corporate stiffness. Linda was with him, gave me a quiet nod. I shook his hand, firm and steady, though my heart was racing like a train on loose rails. "Grant Aldridge," he said, "we've heard a lot about you." I sat down slowly. "Some of it might even be true," he smiled. "I'm hoping the part about you managing 10 of Martech's top accounts is." "It is," I said. "At least it was, until yesterday." I laid it all out, clean, simple, professional. The acquisition, the shrinking team, the silent layoffs, the pay cut that cut deeper than numbers. I told him about the workload, the burnout, the broken promises, and Stephen just listened. When I finished, he reached into a leather folder and slid something across the table. I froze. Offer letter. Nexus Technologies, Director of Strategic Partnerships. $165,000 base. 25% bonus potential. Full family health coverage. Stock options. A signing bonus if I could start in 2 weeks. It was more than what I made before, nearly triple what Martech had just offered. I looked up, stunned. "Why this much?" Stephen didn't blink. "Because you're not a number to us. You're a relationship builder, and those don't grow on trees." He paused. "You're a competitive edge we've wanted for years, and now, finally, you're free." You ever have someone say exactly what you needed to hear? After years of silence? That was me. sitting there with my coffee holding a piece of paper that felt like freedom. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't going back. Let me tell you what I did with that offer, because the next part, that's where it gets fun. I walked back into the Martech office at 11:15 a.m. sharp. Same carpet, same stale coffee smell, but everything felt different. I wasn't a man begging to keep his job anymore. I was a man holding a better one in his coat pocket. Karen was waiting by the door. "They're ready for you," she said, eyes avoiding mine. Eric sat at the head of the small conference table, hands folded like he was doing me a favor. "Well, Grant," he said, not bothering to stand, "have you reached a decision?" I didn't sit yet, just placed my notebook down, calm. "Before I answer, I have 2 questions." Eric blinked. "Go ahead. Who's handling the Westfield implementation now that I'm gone?" I asked. "And who's leading the Alder renewal next quarter?" He hesitated, glanced at Karen. "We'll reassign those accounts internally." "Internally?" I said, finally taking a seat. "You mean to people who've never spoken to Sonia or Mark, who don't know what kept those deals alive last year?" Eric's voice tightened. "Those accounts belong to the company, not to you." "Of course," I said, smiling. "So let's be clear, this meeting isn't about partnership, it's about disposal." He shifted in his chair. "Do you accept the revised compensation or not?" I reached into my coat and pulled out a printed page. "I quit," I said, "effective immediately." Karen gasped. Eric's face went blank like someone had cut the power behind his eyes. "That violates director policy," he said. "We require 2 weeks' notice." "Check my contract," I replied. "Legacy Merrickson terms, no severance, no notice. And since this was a unilateral pay cut over 15%, all transition obligations are waived." His mouth opened, closed. Red crept up his neck. You ever watch a man realize he's not the smartest one in the room? It's a beautiful thing. But it wasn't over. I had one last card to play, and I saved it for the door. Let me show you what I said next. I stood to leave, my chair sliding back slow and steady on the old vinyl floor. Eric still hadn't moved. Karen sat frozen, her hand hovering near her folder like it could shield her from what came next. At the door, I paused. "Oh," I said, turning back. "I've accepted a position with Nexus Technologies. I start Monday." The air went still. Eric blinked like he hadn't heard me right. Karen's mouth opened just a little, then closed again. Nobody spoke. "No non-compete," I added. "Never signed one. Merrickson didn't enforce it, and Martech never updated it." Eric found his voice, quiet, sharp. "You've just made a serious mistake." "Have I?" "We'll be reviewing all your communications. If we find even a hint of poaching, client interference, anything, you'll sue me?" I asked, walking back toward the table. "Go ahead. I've taken nothing that doesn't belong to you. No files, no lists, just what's in here." I tapped my temple. "And what's built in here?" I tapped my chest. He didn't answer. You ever watch someone realize all their threats have no teeth? I left the room and walked straight to my desk. Maria, Paul, and Jasmine were waiting, standing like they knew, like the whole office had heard the silence that followed my resignation. "You really leaving?" Paul asked. I nodded. "What about us?" Jasmine whispered. I looked each of them in the eye. "Check your inbox in 1 hour." No promises, just facts. I packed slowly, my family photo, my old mug that said "World's Okayest Boss," the emergency inhaler I kept for Noah, 9 years in one box. Then security came. "Company policy," they said. I smiled. I figured. They escorted me out like I was a risk, like a man with a box and a quiet smile could burn the place down. But I wasn't angry, not yet, because I still had 3 calls to make. And the next one? That's where the real shift began. Let me tell you who I dialed first. The elevator ride down felt longer than usual, not because I was scared, because I was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that only comes when there's nothing left to lose and everything ahead of you has already begun. I stepped outside, box in hand, sunlight hitting my face like I hadn't seen it in weeks. My phone buzzed the moment I reached my car. First message, Paul. Grant, it's chaos in here. Second, Jasmine. Eric's sending out instructions for transition plans, but no one knows what to do. Third, from Sonia Dorsey, CTO, Westfield International. Grant, are you still leading our implementation next month? That one hit deep. I sat in the driver's seat and stared at the screen. Then I called her. Sonia, it's Grant. I'm no longer with Martech. Silence. Then, who's replacing you? I don't know, I said. They didn't tell me either. Figures, she muttered. They've been slipping ever since the buyout. She didn't ask where I was going. Not yet. She just said, send me your new contact info. The board will want to know. Then came Robert Linfield, Alder Technologies. Same question, same silence when I told him the truth. One by one, clients started reaching out. Not because I announced it, because word spreads when something important disappears without explanation. And I had disappeared, without a ripple, but not without weight. You ever feel that strange mix of fear and power? Like the boat behind you is sinking, but you're already swimming to shore? That was me. Back at the office, emails were flying, Eric panicking, Karen dodging questions, my old team? Quiet, watching, waiting. They didn't know what to do without me, but they were about to find out what I could do without them. And that's when my phone rang again. Unknown number, deep voice on the other end. Is this Grant Aldridge? It was Frank Donovan. Let me tell you what he said. Mr. Aldridge, the voice said, this is Frank Donovan, CEO of Martech Corporation. I didn't answer right away, just let the silence stretch long enough for him to feel it. I understand, he continued, that we may have a situation. That was one way to put it. I've received calls from Sonia Dorsey, Robert Linfield, others expressing concern about your departure and questioning our future involvement on their accounts. Still, I waited. He cleared his throat. I'd like to speak frankly. What would it take to bring you back? Now I laughed. You're serious? Very, he said, but we've run the numbers. Losing even 2 of your accounts could cost us millions. Should have thought of that before you let Eric cut me off at the knees. He exhaled. That decision was made at the regional level, not by me. Doesn't matter, I said. The damage is done. We're willing to match Nexus's offer, add a retention bonus, title bump too. It's not about money, Frank, I said, and for the first time, I meant it. It's about 9 years of loyalty thrown in the trash. It's about a 15-year-old boy who watched his dad come home exhausted and still try to show up. Another pause. You're angry, I understand that. No, I said. I'm not angry, I'm free. You don't get to win me back just because it's now inconvenient to lose me. Then what do you want? I kept my voice steady. Treat the people who are still there better than you treated me. Start with Maria and stop threatening legal action against a man who's done nothing wrong. Silence. Then, no lawsuit. You have my word. You ever hang up the phone knowing you finally spoke your truth? I did, and I slept better that night than I had in years. But the story doesn't end there. Let me tell you what happened next inside Nexus. It's where everything truly began. 3 days after that call, I walked into Nexus with a fresh badge and a quiet fire in my chest. They gave me an actual office, not a cubicle, not a converted closet, a door I could close, a window that faced sunlight, a team I got to build myself. First hires, Maria and Paul. They handed in their resignations the day after I left. Jasmine stayed behind, visa issues, but she called me on my first lunch break just to say she missed working with people who gave a damn. And then, the clients started moving. It wasn't flashy, no grand announcements, just quiet decisions behind closed doors. Sonia called first. "Grant," she said, "we're switching to Nexus. The implementation team they sent after you left couldn't find their way out of a paper bag." I didn't celebrate. I just thanked her, gave her my word we'd do it right. 2 weeks later, Robert from Alder followed, then Briarwood Systems, then Tetra Orp. One after another they came, not because I chased them, but because trust follows value. I never reached out first, I didn't need to. You ever have people find you because they remember how you made them feel? That was happening, over and over. And every time I kept it clean. No gossip, no bitterness, just delivery, just results. At the 6-month mark, 5 of my 10 former clients had joined us. Frank kept his word, no lawsuit. But word around the industry, he wasn't smiling much these days. Eric moved on to other opportunities. Karen got reassigned. Martech quietly abandoned their plan to outsource client services. Too little, too late. Sometimes the loudest revenge is silence, followed by results they can't deny. And for the first time in a long while, I came home early. Noah looked up from the dinner table and smiled. "Home before dark?" he asked. "Get used to it," I said. But there was still one chapter left. One moment I didn't expect. Let me show you how it all came full circle. It happened at a tech conference in Chicago, 6 months after everything changed. I was there to speak on client retention strategies, standing behind a podium with Nexus on my badge and confidence in my chest. After the session, I felt a tap on my shoulder. "Grant Aldridge," the man said. "Didn't expect to see you here." I turned. It was Harold Finch, my old CEO from Marrickson, the one who sold us off, cashed out, and vanished. He looked older, tired around the eyes. But when he hugged me, it was genuine. "I heard what happened," he said. "I should have protected you better." "You did what you thought was right," I replied. "No," he shook his head. "I thought Martech would keep their promises. I was wrong. You built something real, and they treated it like overhead." I didn't argue. There was no point. I just nodded. You ever get an apology you didn't ask for, but needed more than you realized? That was mine. We parted ways, and I walked outside into the crisp evening air. My phone buzzed. A photo from Noah. His science fair project, first place, his smile beaming, holding a trophy in one hand and a slice of pizza in the other. I hadn't missed it. I was there, front row, cheering like a fool. That's the real win, not the salary, not the title, not even the clients who followed. It's knowing I stood up when it counted, walked away when it hurt, and built a life that fits. Not just my skills, but my soul. You ever wonder if it's too late to start again? It's not. And if you're listening to this sitting in your car like I once was, wondering if anyone sees your worth, let me be the one to say it. I see you. You matter. Now go build something better. You've still got time. And you only need one phone call to begin. It wasn't the lawsuit that never came. It wasn't Eric getting fired. It wasn't the millions Martech lost. The real revenge was quiet. It was walking Noah to school on a Wednesday morning without checking my inbox. It was dinner at the table instead of cold leftovers on the couch. It was seeing my name on the door, not just a cubicle nameplate, but a place I built, a role I earned. It was peace. You see, they thought they could break me, shrink me, reduce me to a number on a spreadsheet. But what they really did was set me free, because when someone tries to bury you, they forget. You were a seed. So if you've ever been overlooked, undervalued, tossed aside by people who once called you family, you're not alone, and you're not done. Because the story doesn't end with rejection. It begins with rediscovery. Stand up, dust off, pick up the phone. You never know who's been waiting for your call. And hey, you still got some good years in you. Let's make them count.